Well, Conservative leadership candidate Pierre Poilievre is getting a big boost from a familiar face.
Pierre Poilievre was a strong minister in my government. In the past several years, he's been our party's most vocal and effective critic of the Trudeau Liberals. He's been talking about the issues, especially the economic issues, that matter.
Now, it's the first time that former Prime Minister Stephen Harper has weighed in on a leadership race in the party he helped found, at least publicly. Jean Charest, Poilievre's main rival, responded last night saying, Mr. Harper has made a personal choice. He and his supporters will always be welcome in the Conservative Party of Canada. This race is about the future. Right now, we have a choice: lose more seats or build on our momentum across Canada to win a majority government. We're going to get reaction to all of this. Corey Teneycke is a former Director of Communications to former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. He's in Toronto. Corey Hahn is a former Director of Communications to the Conservative Party of Canada. He's in Ottawa. And here with me in the studio, Josie Sabatino, former Communications Director to Aaron O'Toole. Welcome to you all. We've covered our Corys from K to C. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Teneycke, if this, just to make it clear who we're speaking with. This is the first time your old boss has weighed in and endorsed anyone into leadership. Why do you think he's doing this now?
Well, Stephen Harper has always been somebody who follows his own course, and so if he's doing it, it's because he feels strongly about the options on the table, and this is what he wants to say. That being said, like I think there's probably one other factor. I think this race has been over for some time now, and so it's not I think highly determinative in the outcome. I think the outcome of this was determined quite some time ago. So. I think that's probably a factor in his thinking that it's not the same as if this was a hot race where you had two candidates in a dead heat.
Corey Hahn, is that your take, that this race is over, let the healing begin, says former Prime Minister Harper, let's come together?
Yeah, look, it's this race, as Corey said, it's been over for a while, so it's kind of a zero risk play from Mr. Harper to come out and endorse Pierre. And I mean, of course, anytime Mr. Harper is going to put an endorsement on the table, you're going to take it, whether it's 2 months ago or a month and a half from now. You know, if Mr. Harper called me on September 9th and I was running in this race offering an endorsement, I would jump at the chance. So it's not exactly a huge shock to see this now. It also goes to show just kind of the level of respect he has for Mr. Poilievre and his time working in Mr. Harper's government. Obviously, that they go back a long ways, including when Pierre was first elected. So, yeah, not a huge surprise. Certainly, first time we've seen Mr. Harper come out in any of these leadership races, but it's kind of a foregone conclusion right now. I think this is just a little bit extra added wind in the sails for Team Poilievre.
Okay, so Josie, the two Corys, they say this is over, and that's why former Prime Minister Harper is coming out. But we did see this Angus Reid poll that came out this week, maybe showing that Jean Charest would be a stronger candidate potentially in certain key regions in a general election. Could that be a motivating factor in the timing of this endorsement?
I agree with the two Corys on the screen. I think this race is done. But what I do think differentiates this endorsement is that this could potentially take Mr. Poilievre to a first ballot win. And that solidifies his support in caucus and gives him the definitive lead that he needs to really take this home and really go into that first September caucus meeting and say to his caucus, we're united, we're ready to win. And that's the differentiating feature here.
Right. So Corey Teneycke, how much of this is love for Pierre Poilievre as opposed to, say, loathing for Jean Charest? Because you remember Mr. Harper resigned from the Conservative Fund to try to stop Mr. Charest when he mused about this in the past, and it's an open secret that he just does not like the former Liberal Premier of Quebec.
Well, they come from very different sides of the Conservative movement over time. Harper being a founding member of the Reform Party that was really a rejection of the government that Charest was a minister in back in the Mulroney days. So there's obviously very long-standing differences, but I must say that the reaction from the Charest campaign on this issue is sort of resembled a fish flopping on the bottom of the boat. It might not be in the pan yet, but it's definitely on the menu. This race is over. This is done. To throw out another analogy, this is if you're running for Pope, like having God himself come down and endorse your candidacy. It's compelling. It will have an impact on the race in terms of helping to bring the party behind who I think the obvious predicted winner will be.
Well, Corey Hahn, the divinity of Stephen Harper aside, I mean, if you were advising Jean Charest right now, I mean, what do you even do at this point? If the race is as set and as over as all three of you seem to think, I mean, how do you even start to push back against this if you're Jean Charest?
Look, I actually think Jean Charest eventually handled this pretty well as you can in this kind of circumstance. He respected Mr. Harper's personal choice and welcomed him into the party that he founded. But we'll leave that for another day. But look, to Corey's point, yeah. Look, if Jean Charest has a card up his sleeve and has a favor to call in, I don't know how religious he is, but unless he can get Jesus Christ himself to descend from the heavens and tell Conservative members, please vote for Jean Charest, it's going to be a long month and a half. And even then, that probably only really hurts Leslie Lewis more than Pierre Poilievre at this point.
Josie, they're invoking God and Jesus Christ more than Pope Francis, and he's actually delivered a mass today. I mean, what would you do if you're Jean Charest right now? I mean, everybody, is there any path? Because this is the argument you keep hearing from the Charest camp, that Poilievre sold these memberships, he's just running up the score in Alberta and in British Columbia, and we've got the vote distribution. I mean, that's an argument you can make to pundits, but is that an argument that can adjust this race?
I think the reality for Mr. Charest is that he really did, just as the Angus Reid poll points out, bring in new members to the party. He needed those Liberals and those NDP switch votes to come out and support him, and it doesn't seem like that happened. So the reality is, unless that he can come up with some magical votes out of somewhere, he cannot win this race. And I think this was part of the calculation by the Pierre Poilievre camp, is to put this out, suppress his vote, and lose motivation behind Mr. Charest. And I think that's what's going to happen.
But, Corey, tonight, is this good precedent to have former leaders weighing in like this? I mean, there is a tendency of elder statesmen like that and people who led the party to kind of stay out of it and let the current generation sort it out amongst themselves.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a tradition of doing that, but as we talked about earlier, I think the change in this and the change in the protocol in this is that the race, appears to be over and appears to have been over for some time. Like if you go through the math, like there was never a wide path for potential victory for someone other than Pierre Poilievre going into this. But as soon as Brown was out of the race, that went from a narrow path to a non-existent path. I think the math of it just doesn't work out. Pierre would have had the majority of the existing membership going in. He sold more memberships than anyone in any leadership race I've ever seen. And then he had the candidate that was likely in second place. But if not second, then third. But clearly, a serious competitor in Patrick Brown tossed. Mathematics, like gravity, it can be a very unforgiving thing, and you can argue with it and you can try to spin it, but you jump off a bridge, you're going to hit ground, and it's going to hurt. Like, it's just inevitable.
Right. I've got about 60 seconds left. I want to get Corey Hahn and Josie in just on this point. So, like, the math being whatever the math is, like, Corey Hahn, it's not technically over, and even in lopsided races in the past, other leaders have stayed out of it. I mean, does this create a potentially problematic precedent down the road?
Look, I was a little bit surprised to see Mr. Harper come out, but also Mr. Scheer came out earlier in the race to endorse Pierre. So, again, to Corey's point, not all that surprising, given that the race is feeling like it's all but over, and especially after the Mr. Harper endorsement, it probably is. But yeah, for Pierre Poilievre and his team, basically this Harper endorsement now allows them to kind of show their cards on a united front and bring this party together come September 10th when they do eventually win this, and show that like the support is there across the party, and including from former leaders like Mr. Harper and Mr. Scheer.
All right, Josie, quick final thoughts on that.
The reality is Stephen Harper united this party. He brought the modern conservative movement together. He's won 3 elections. He sees that this is a change election coming forward, which everybody predicts. So I think he exercised his leadership qualities to throw his weight behind a party and hope that they're united at the end of this.
Okay. Well, if you're all right,
Well
September
said.
10th is going to be some boring broadcast. All right, Corey tonight, Corey Hahn, Josie Sabatino. Good to talk to you all. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.